It's an honor to be part of this virtual conference. Not exactly what I suppose any of us expected, to be much more familiar with Zoom than we would ever want to be. But here we are. So I want to talk about the foundations of dialogue, something that arguably many of us implicitly know, but maybe not explicitly. And explicitly knowing them gives us the idea that there are rules. We can learn what the rules are and become more successful in our transactions. So I want to start with the notion of the self as a fundamentally relational phenomena. The term ontic interdependence is used by Ivan Bazarmonianaj. Ontic is a thorny word. It's from philosophy. It means that which is essential to the nature of being itself. In order to be a me, I need a not me. I need a not self representation. I need someone else. Now, we need each other above and beyond our biological drives. We need others in order to create a consistent sense of myself as a real person. What does that mean? Well, let me take you to an anecdote I suspect many of you will find familiar. So my wife and I have this little inside joke. You all know the riddle, if a tree falls in the woods and there's no one there to hear it, does it actually make a sound? And in our family, it's if our son was out playing and he discovered something, remarkable, if his parents aren't there to applaud and go, oh boy, is he actually having fun? And I would submit to you that the answer is no, not really. What I mean by that is that it's unless he sees the joyous response of his parents mirror back his internal sensation, his internal experience that is ill-defined. It's not until it's mirrored back by the parents does he actually have a sense of the experience as being real. And then his own sense of self at that moment becomes real. So what does it look like when there is an absence of that? Well, consider the movie Castaway, which I'm sure many of you have seen. The short version is Tom Hanks' character is stranded alone all by himself on a deserted island. And it's a crazy-making situation. We know that people who are left in solitary confinement are, short order to go crazy. And so how does he cope with this very problematic scenario? He has a best friend. His Friday is in the form of a volleyball that he titles Wilson, appropriately enough. And as the slide depicts, he has a very animated relationship with Wilson. Here he's conducting, an argument. So he has invested or cathected Wilson with very powerful self-energy so that he has the self-other combination, what's called a dialectic, the self, not self, to create a sense of realness, to create a sense of himself. Now, spoiler alert, as the movie gets to its climactic scene, he builds a makeshift raft to navigate across the difficult waters to finally rescue himself from this island. And a large wave blows Wilson overboard, to the north, and the ship that can save his life is to the south. And he's actually caught for a moment of indecision. Does he swim to the ship and save his life like the audience wishes? Or does he rescue the damaged volleyball? Why in the world would this be a problem? Why is this even a question? And let's allow that it's a movie after all, it's fiction, but the verisimilitude comes in the fact that, you see, without the volleyball, there is really no him. The volleyball represents a not self other. So to lose the volleyball is literally like losing a part of himself. And I'll leave those who don't know the end of the movie to figure out which choice he makes. So A dialectic, as Hegel defined it, is when you have a thesis, something, and an antithesis, something not, and you put them together and you get a synthesis, something that is more than the sum of its two parts. That's a dialectic. In human relationships, it's the self and a not self, other, or relating other. Now, thanks to advances in computer imaging, we now have an idea of what the self looks like in the absence of a dialectic context, when there's no one there to relate to. Nothing. Bupkis. You get nothing. Imagine being stranded on that island with 100 of your favorite songs. In a month, you'd jump off a cliff. So you see, without a relating other, we start to lose our moorings. We start to lose a sense of ourself as being real. We arguably begin to depersonalize. We start to lose a sense of self-other boundary, our physical boundary. We can go numb and lose a sense of what's real and not real. This is the side view. So Winnicott observes that if maternal care is not good enough, then the infant does not really come into existence, since there's no continuity of being. Instead, the personality becomes built on the basis of reactions to environmental impingement. That's a very, very profound statement. He's extremely to the point and blunt. The infant, he says, does not really come into existence. It's through continuity and attuned mirroring from the primary caregiver that creates a sense of realness in that infant. And therefore, the realness of the other as an empathic, attuned object creates a stable sense of self. Now, building on this reasoning, Nagy argues that there are 6 possibilities for what can occur, and I'm going to briefly go through them and then focus on my favorite one. So if you look at cell A in the top left, you have intrasubject boundary. That's just one person. So that cell represents a single person or single noggin. And what we see in the very top left, in the very top, is the subject world, the subjective world, and the object world is sectioned off. What would this be? What is this experience? Well, maybe this is what an in utero environment is, where there's no sense of otherness. Maybe profound autism. Maybe a profound sense of isolation after prolonged solitary confinement. There's just a sense of self without anything to kick off of. Now, let me propose a thought experiment. And this is strictly a conjecture. It's just a way of fleshing out this idea. So imagine it's me, and I'm a fetus. I did say imagine. And I'm floating around in my mother's uterus, and everything's pretty good. The temperature is just so, and I have a constant supply of food and oxygen and so forth. And when I'm extremely tiny, there would be really no sense that there's anything else in the universe except my experience, that we have no idea, what infantile, neonatal consciousness is. So again, this is strictly a dream. This is strictly a thought experiment, but it's just all is oneness. All is oneness. In fact, there's no me because there's no not me. Until one day, as I've grown larger and larger, and I reach out my little foot, I hit something that's not me. Yeah, that's definitely not me. Perhaps that's the initial experience of a me, not me boundary. That there's something in the universe besides me. And if there's something besides me, then there is a me. Now, let's move to cell B. That's at the top right of your screen. Here we still have a single person. In the top half, we have a subject acting on an internal object. And in the bottom half, we have the reverse. What's this? Well, perhaps this is internal dialogue. This is when I'm talking to myself. That, you know, if I say to myself, oh, I got to remember to get milk, who am I talking to? Or if I'm being self-critical and I think, oh, what an idiot, why didn't I do that? Well, who's talking to whom? It's me talking to another part of me. In dissociative identity disorder, in even run-of-the-mill fragmented identity, parts of self talk to other parts of self. That's actually much more normative than not. So this is an internal dialogue, and arguably it sustains a sense of self. I mean, if I were on that island, I'd be talking to myself. I would populate that island with figments of my own imagination in order to keep on some kind of continuous internal dialogue. Now let's go to cell C, merger. This could be understood by many, many names that are common in the literature. For example, what's commonly talked about is codependence. I don't prefer that word because it means a million different things depending on what you read. I think more specific language, for example, intersubjective fusion. Murray Bowen talked about the undifferentiated family ego mass, right? Carl Whitaker talked about the Jello salad of the family. What's being described here is here we have two people in relationship. They share their subjectivity, almost to the point of reading each other's minds or thoughts, but any sense of object or otherness is kept away. So there's a strong emphasis on we, us. This might be the couple that presents in therapy and says, we need to work on communication. We need to figure out how to argue without hurting anybody's feelings. It begs the question, who is this imaginary we? Isn't it you and you? Not so much. So another version of this at a larger scale might be a cult. In a cult, we have the subjective sense of what's true, real, and valuable defined by a charismatic leader. And the expectation is all the followers are to subscribe to the same subjective sense of what's true, real, and important. And any disagreements, anybody who thinks differently is sequestered, literally thrown out of the cult, excommunicated if they can't be, co-opted and brought back in. So merger is a sense of one and one make one. A disastrous proposal, but extremely popular. And if you listen to, pop music, you'll hear this theme over and over again, that one and one make one. I would, conjecture that most of the authors of those songs are divorced many times over. Now let's go to my favorite coupling. This is being the object or being the subject. Let's start with my favorite. It's all about me. Here we have two people in relationship. This is the cell in the lower left. And it's a subject operating on an object, but it's a one-way street. Now, this kind of presentation would be familiar to everybody. For example, normal childhood egocentrism. So it's completely part of the developmental norm that, children, both, from the hardware and the software point of view, are self-centered. In the fetus situation, there is no other, so it's all about me anyway. And it's only by degrees as I'm born and grow and start to mature that I even have a sense that, mom has a social security number, for example. I mean, there is no sense of otherness. Now, in the modern day, people who are thoughtful about their parenting, we subscribe to a notion of a child-centered family. And probably most of you, all of you know what that is. That's the idea that children are important, that they're real people, that they have a rich internal life, that that internal life matters, and that it's healthy development to elicit and be curious about that internal life. We talk to our children. We ask them, how was your day? How did it go? What went well? What did not go well? How did you feel? I wasn't asked those questions in my generation. No. In fact, probably many of you in the same cohort as myself were raised with a notion of children as to be seen but not heard. That would be a very good definition of an object. In the modern family, it's child-centered, and we accept that it's important to focus on kids, but we don't expect reciprocity. After all, they're little. Narcissism, of course, is a personality condition in which it's all about me and self-importance, and I maneuver my relationships so as to continue to get mirrored back a sense of myself. And then this competing for being about me, Naj describes as competing for the filial position. I love that concept. Filial means the child in a parent-child relationship. So like the little boy with a frog, in the early slide, he's saying, look at me, look at me. And he's looking for that validation. He's looking for a look on his parents' face that mirror his internal experience to make it real. And he kind of has that coming. He expects that to be the case. Children are born expecting that that's to be the case. Whether it is or isn't, some people carry that on into adulthood and they continue to expect that to be the case. And so Naj describes them as competing for the filial position, as if entitled to receive the child's share of attention from a child-centered family point of view. Because there is a sort of ersatz parenting quality to dominating attention and having it be all about me as a continuous feedback loop about who I am, whether that's who I am good, who I am bad. There's a continuous feedback. This kind of personality structure is often anchored in attachment trauma where there isn't a sufficient amount of object constancy. So I'm constantly having to go back to the well to get yet another dose of feedback from whoever I can pin down. Another version of this is what Freud described as passive receptive mastery. This is kind of where we all start out. It's a very, I think, ingenious way of describing one of the strategies of infants. Strategy doesn't mean a conscious plan. It just means that by very virtue of their utter dependency, by their passivity, they master the parent-child relationship to receive care. Now, obviously, that's not true for every child. It's woefully inadequate for many. But the idea is that the mere fact of dependency in the healthy parent-child relationship stimulates caregiving and nurturing from the parent. But another adult presentation of being the subject is the poor me role. And we are all familiar with this. The poor me role is a way of dominating the subject role, typically by virtue of suffering. So we all understand the implicit social contract that suffering appends to the subject role. If I'm in a group of friends and we're all chatting about, and one of us says, oh, hey, I just got a new car. It's about me. I got a new car. And my friends will all nod in approval and ask about my car. But if I turn over to Winslow and Winslow says, I'd really love to be happy about your car, but I've got 6 months to live. It's going to be about Winslow. We all know that if I continue to prattle on about my new car in the light of Winslow's death sentence, well, that's just going to feel really crummy. We all know this. And this is why. We all know that the new car beats out, it's hot out. But we all know that the death sentence beats out the new car. So whoever can spin the best tale of suffering typically wins the subject game. Now, in the subject-object game, and I'll get to the object role in a minute, one would think that whoever wins the subject game, getting this more or less continuous dose of attention, wins. Well, they win in the short run. However, I think it's instructive, although not empirically valid, that if you look at people who actually dominate the subject role, for example, despotic rulers, ruthless dictators, the Idi Amins, the people who will kill anybody who doesn't agree, the Saddam Husseins of the world. You see, they're winning the subject game. It's all about them. And anybody who says, I think you're wrong about that, they're probably not going to last very long. You see, so somebody like a Saddam Hussein surrounds himself by yes men and lackeys, people who will simply mirror back a view of himself as wonderful, terrific, all-powerful, all-knowing, and is crazy-making. I don't think it's coincidental that he was a megalomaniacal and paranoid individual. Now, maybe he started out that way. Maybe he would have been that way. In any case, there's no way to know this. So I submit this once again to you as a thought experiment, that the condition of it being all about me on a more or less continuous basis is pathogenic. It leads me down a dark path where my moorings about what's true and real start to shift, you see, and then I become grandiose, expansive, and unrealistic. When Saddam Hussein, some of you may remember, thought that when the US invaded, it would be the mother of all wars and that his imperial troops would prevail. He probably believed it. I mean, there's a good chance he actually believed it. That's how far removed from reality he was. So the winner of the subject-object game is not a winner in the long run. No. It turns out you have to be good at being an object. So what's that look like? Well, before we talk about the object role, I want to talk about sort of clinical considerations for optimizing a client's adoption of an authentic subject role. What does that mean? Well, in committed relationship, in peer relationships, in symmetrical relationships, important that there's a trade-off. Sometimes it's about me and sometimes it's about my partner, my friend, my family member. Dominating the subject role all the time in close relationship is pathogenic, as I said. In the therapeutic relationship, however, it's to be expected. The therapeutic relationship is asymmetrical. It's not about me, it's about my clients. Now, exactly what the balance is of self-other in the therapeutic relationship depends in part on the therapeutic model being invoked. So for example, in classical analysis, where the analysand, the patient, lies on a couch, the analyst is out of sight, it's so much about the patient that the skew is 99-1, 99% about the patient and 1% about the analyst. And that's by design, that's intentional, for he knew what he was setting up, that's completely part of the model. I would argue that most of us use a much more participatory, collaborative model of psychotherapy, in which case the skew is not so extreme. It's a little closer, but it's never 50-50. It shouldn't be 50-50, otherwise why would they be paying me? No, maybe it's 90-10, but it's about the client, it's about the client's needs. You see, the therapist needs to weigh in with his or her agenda about what's clinically appropriate, about how to help. We do have expertise, we do have training, and so it's only right that we weigh in here and there, but we're weighing in a way to optimize the client's adoption of an authentic subject role. What does that mean? Well, if the therapist is a good object, curious, non-judgmental, open-minded, interested, caring, A good object promotes the adoption of a good subject role, authentic, truthful, intimate, disclosing. By contrast, if the therapist is judgmental, short-tempered, disinterested, well, that kind of promotes an inauthentic or bad subject role. Inauthentic, inaccurate, managing the relationship through deceit or manipulation. So we want to optimize the authentic subject role. So an interview style that I like to employ and often teach my clients, especially if they're parents or themselves teachers or therapists, is what I call the circling sharks method of interviewing. Now, I really want to depart from the whole predator-prey aspect of this. That's not really where I'm going with this. But only the fact that most sharks, most of the time, before they go, they don't beeline it for their prey. Some do, but often they don't. They do what's a surveillance arc. They circle around to check things out. There's no emergency room in the ocean, so they have to be careful. Even though they're apex predators, they're pretty cautious. They circle, they tighten the circle, surveilling the prey all the time, and then often they take a sample nip or they bump the thing, the prey, to see if it's real, if it's edible, and so forth. Well, again, getting away from eating and being eaten. When I interview, often, depending on the relationship of the person, I don't want to dive right in to the middle of the circle. I want to take a gradual arc. It's more vague or general because you see in the diameter in that circle, there could be very valuable information that I wouldn't pick up. So for example, if I have a young child and, all night we worked on the math test and the kid goes to school and comes back, and the first thing I say when he walks in the door is, "How'd you do in the test?" Well, naturally I want to know. I've taken a beeline right to the prey, right to the middle of the circle. That's my circle of interest. You see, that's really about me. And the child says what happened on the test, but in the course of this, I might miss what happened on the bus. Maybe he was bullied, or maybe somebody passed him a friendly note, you see, or something the teacher did was quite disturbing. You see, I would have eliminated all that stuff that's in the area of the circle by diving in too quickly. I'd rather take more of a backed up approach, more vague. How'd it go today? And collect information if I have time to do it. So I want to demonstrate what this might look like in a clinical situation. So to help me out, I have my wonderful daughter, Molly. So,
do you want to close down the slide?
Close down the slide?
Yeah, so that they get a better picture.
Excellent. This is why she's a wonderful daughter. Perfect. Okay, so Molly is my client. Let me ask you, Molly. Molly, right? Yes. Tell me about those panic attacks you've been having. Yeah, that wasn't very good. Let's try it again. How was your week? Good, right? Now you see, I'm leading the witness. You see, it's too much about me. How about this one? Oh, hey, you look quite happy. How do I know she's happy? People smile because they're good at being fake. So again, it's leading the witness. It's taking her down a road of my design for my own purposes, not necessarily what she needs or what's valuable to help her be authentic when she wants to tell me how miserable she is. Let's try it this way. So Molly, tell me, last time we worked on those coping skills, how are those coping skills working for you now?
Well, I had to use my coping skills a couple times on Tuesday when I was abducted by aliens, but I guess you don't want to hear about that. So I'll keep dissociating and you can get back to that checklist.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. So once again, you see I'm going to the middle of the circle. This is too much about me. And in so doing, you see, because I'm the subject, that makes her an object. I'm literally objectifying her. And her retort reveals that, even if clients may not be quite so candid with us, that when I'm so invested, I'm feeling good about my capabilities as a therapist and feeding her with, this is good, this is right, it's helpful, I think you're coming along beautifully. I'm telling myself that this is a good, because I'm objectifying her. I'm delimiting her capacity to tell me authentically what's true. I see somebody has a raised hand, but we'll take questions and comments at a quarter to the hour. So
can you repeat? I think you cut out a little bit.
Oh, okay. So it froze. Okay. It's blazingly hot in here. I don't know how I froze.
Barry, you froze for just about 2 minutes in there. So
where did I leave off?
30, maybe 30 seconds. Maybe if you want to start right after you had referenced the coping skills, after Molly's wonderful response to your coping skills, maybe start there.
Perfect. Okay, so hit me with the coping skills line. How'd they work this week?
Well, I was abducted by aliens, but clearly you don't want to hear about that, so I'll just keep dissociating. You get back to your checklist.
So because this business about, coping skills, treatment goals, whatever, is really my agenda, it's about me, I'm the subject, I'm objectifying my client. I'm telling myself it's a good thing. After all, I've got this paperwork, I've got these goals, I'm interested in her improvement, but am I interested at the expense of her being able to tell me authentically what's going on? Am I making it an uphill battle for her to say, I'm miserable, I'm unhappy, I'm not getting better? Can she have the courage to tell her therapist, I'm not getting better? But depending on her background, that might be really hard. Am I going to make it harder for her? I have to be completely open as much as I can so she's free to be an authentic subject, truthful, even if the truth is difficult. Well, let's try it this way. So Molly, tell me, how was your week?
Oh, my father died, actually.
Oh, you must be devastated. That's so sad.
Oh, actually, I hated him. I'm really relieved he's dead. I guess I'm like a freak or something now.
So once again, I made an assumption about what this must be like. I tell myself that I'm being a good empathic person, that I'm validating an experience, but I don't know what her experience is. And it might contradict my expectations or assumptions. I dove into the middle too quickly. So in doing so, I objectified her. In this example, she rightly comes away thinking, well, if a therapist thinks it should be this, but I'm feeling that, one of us is mistaken. I'm paying him, it must be me. Better would be, tell me what happened for you this week.
Ding, ding, ding.
Right. Now tell me the part about how your father died. So tell me, how'd it go this week?
My father died this week.
Tell me about you. What was that like for you?
I celebrated.
Okay, say some more. Ding, so that was better. I have to bridle my own reaction because, again, I don't want to shape her response to fit my assumptions. I have to back off. I'll add a little piece to this, too, that in my view, the principal ethic of care is to care about the person in front of you. What does that mean? So tell me that, your aunt is in the hospital again for hemorrhoids.
So my aunt is in the hospital again for hemorrhoids.
Oh, how's she doing?
Great.
Now, in this instance, it's completely natural to ask about the welfare of the aunt, but I'm missing somebody in the equation, right? Care about the person in front of you. So tell me what's going on. You mentioned your aunt before.
Yeah, she's suffering with her hemorrhoids.
What's that been like for you?
It's been great.
Okay, thank you. So once again, the ethic of care, about the person in front of you. Make them the subject, not the aunt. It should be about the person here. Now I'm going to go to object roles. I'll ask you to, thank you. Right. So let me go back to my next slide. Okay, so being the object. Now the object is the one who gives attention, and I've already described qualifying that role. It could be a good object, curious, non-judgmental, caring, or a bad object, judgmental, indifferent, and so forth. Now therapists are professional good objects. Because we make it about them, and the expectation is that we're non-judgmental, caring, and curious. In addition, of course, clergy. Now, it's an interesting problem, or a thorny problem, really, that depending on the clergy person and their theology and their interpretation of it, it could be that having any of my own needs or being the subject at all could be considered selfish. That to be, for some, religiously true in service, I always have to make it about others, which again is a pathogenic condition. Just as it's pathogenic that it's always about me, it would be pathogenic that it's always about someone else. I have to be a person. Sooner or later, I need to be able to say to somebody, this is what it's like to be me. And finally, of course, sex workers. So there we are. We've joined this august pantheon of people who are professional objects and make it about someone else. So before we go on to dialogue, let me show you some of the ways that we can mess this up. All right. So subject-object roles. So, for example, tell me, what's been happening with you?
Well, Kitty died this week, and I've just been really devastated by it. I mean, we did everything together. We went on walks together. We had cuddle time. That was the best dog I ever had.
Now, Molly, let me explain to you. You see, there are stages of grief, and what you're doing now is basking in negativity. So you see, just as I took the talking stick away from her, I made it about me. This is extremely customary. And in fact, I would submit to you that you could go out today, any one of you, and say to anybody, some form of suffering. My back hurts. I'm worried about my uncle. I might get sick, anything. Dollars to donuts. Whoever you talk to is going to take the subject role away from you and give you advice, platitudes. It's all part of the master plan. Everything works out. Whatever doesn't kill you, maims you, No, that's not it. You get the picture. It's very hard, at least in this culture. I really have no idea how it works in Ghana or someplace, but it's very hard for people to just sit quietly and hold space for somebody who suffers. And people always want to interrupt and fix it. Very annoying. Let's try it again. So Molly, tell me how to go for you.
So Kitty died, and I'm really devastated. It was the best dog I ever had.
How's this been for you?
You could say it's a bit rough.
Okay, good. So again, I stay at the outside of the circle. I make it about her. I don't make assumptions about what her interior life is. My job is to help to elicit her own testimony about her interior life. Let's give you another description. So Molly, tell me how to go this week.
Well, yesterday I was teaching my compassion meditation yoga class, and this woman kept tripping over her chakras and spilling her aura everywhere. I must have yelled at her for about 20 minutes, and I slashed her tires just for good measure. And then I had lunch with Karen.
Can I ask you to go back to the part about getting mad at the woman? Would it be okay for me to ask about that or
Yeah.
give you some feedback? Well, you see, what I'm thinking is, okay, so in this instance, I knocked on the door before I jumped in. I got her permission because, you see, now I want to take the subject role. This would be an appropriate clinical intervention. As long as I understand, I'm taking it from her and making it about me. Now, it's legitimate. I'm conscious. I'm intentional. I'm doing it for clinical purposes that I can understand in my head. I'm not just reacting. What happens if I don't really read my client? What happens if I am not really attuned enough to know that the transition of subject-object roles isn't going as planned? Let's try it again. So, Molly, tell me how'd it go this week?
Well, I was teaching my compassion meditation course, and this woman was just spilling her chakras everywhere. So I yelled at her for 20 minutes and I slashed her tires. And then I had lunch with Karen.
Can I give some feedback about that whole thing?
Yeah.
Well,
Karen is just so annoying. Like, she never knows when to shut up.
Right.
And,
but I'm wondering if
we had hamburgers.
This is very, very typical presentation. Not so much about the hamburger part. But I think it's my turn. I want to make it my turn. I ask if it could be my turn. But what happens is the person isn't really ready to yield the floor. And so they keep on going, or they compete with me. Well, it's a competition for the filial role. They're competing to be the limelight, to get that attention. Now, I consult to many, many therapists. I hear this quite a bit. I'm sure this is true for all of us. There are going to be clients who continuously speak, for the entire session without interruption and without any invitation for feedback. What to do? Well, in this example, what I did is I knocked on the door before I barged in. I wanted to see if I could get her permission. Can I get her permission to intervene, to give some feedback? In the second version, she said yes, but it was not yes. It was really a no. There will be individuals who will never yield the floor. I just submit to you that that's the truth, and it's up to you all to decide what to do with that. One legitimate option is, okay, this is really a supportive therapy. It's serving, my clients something to have somebody listen. Good enough. I could also decide that this therapy is not getting off the ground. I'm not really serving my client in any way that I can justify, and it's time to terminate or transfer. Those are all legitimate choices. What I'd like to try to do before jettisoning the client is see if I can renegotiate the contract from one of she talks and I listen to, can I give feedback? And it might be that I need to get her the minute she walks in the door. And so the way that might go is, before we begin, I just want to make an observation that, in our many sessions, you're describing things going on in your life, and some of them seem very painful. I'm having a hard time figuring out what you're wanting me to do with it. Do you want me to give you thoughts about it? Do you want me to make suggestions, or is it better for you if you just have a place where you can be heard?
Thanks for asking.
So what I'm trying to do is negotiate. I will not pretend with anybody here that it's going to be smooth, or that I'll get an answer and that answer will prevail throughout the rest of the therapy. It'll probably be an ongoing negotiation. But what I'm cognizant of is how the subject-object balance is not going in the way I think it should go, which means I'm not having enough input. Maybe I need to redefine how it should go. Maybe the deal is, with this particular client, I'm always going to be an object. Maybe that's as good as it gets. Let me show you yet another version. So Molly, tell me, how'd it go? What's on your mind?
Well, my best friend just got this amazing job in LA. I'm super, super happy for her, obviously, but she has to move away, and I'm really, really sad about it, which it's stupid. I'm overreacting. It's a first world problem.
Can I offer some thoughts about that? Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Well, I had a brother move away, and I was very close to him, and it was all good. Everybody knew it was a good move for him and stuff, but it doesn't mean I didn't miss him. It doesn't mean it wasn't painful for me. So, if you're finding it, hard to just nail that it's hard for you, I mean, I can understand that. How has it been for you?
It's been really hard.
Okay. So what I'm picking up in here is some ambivalence, like, I'm happy for my friend, I'm sad for me. Is it okay for me to own my feelings? Maybe yes, maybe no. So now I'm using myself, but observe as I take the baton, as I take the subject role away, I'm doing it in the service of amplifying or giving her a green light to express what she's got on her mind. Now I can mess this up. And therapists often struggle with the question of self-disclosure, what's enough or too much. And some, I think, toe the line way too close, like I'll never disclose anything. I don't have any photos, you don't even know my name, whatever. The real balance shouldn't be some rote description of what you do and don't share, but rather an awareness of how it affects subject-object role exchange. So for example, tell me about your friend moving away.
So my friend moved away, and I'm really happy for her, but I'm also really sad. But I guess it's a first world problem.
Can I offer some thoughts about that?
Yeah.
So, my brother moved away, and it was all good, but I found it very sad because he was consumed by locusts. It was extremely hard for her to recover from that one. So the content of what I said was just so huge that's going to be really hard for her to recover and say, well, let me talk about me. Here's another way of doing the same kind of thing. Tell me about your friend.
So my friend moved away, and I'm happy for her, but I'm also really sad, and I guess it's a first world problem.
Can I offer some thoughts about that?
Yeah.
So my brother moved away, and it was all good, but I got over it. But you were not here to talk about me. Really, you take it. Thank you. So in the first version, I hijacked the session because the content of my disclosure was, just so traumatic that how could she talk about something that relatively to her perspective seems trivial. In the second version, my disclosure was something that I have not myself metabolized, so that my affective response is going to overwhelm her and she's going to feel the need to take care of me. So you see, suffering appends to the subject role. So you see, if I'm going to share something, I have to be in a place where I can say it in a very matter-of-fact way, and I'm not revealing suffering or any kind of implicit need for her to help me, rescue me, or otherwise adopt the object role for me. So there's some other slides that are in your packet that we won't have time because of the scenario, but I want to leave it open now for questions and comments. So I'll ask our moderator to translate for me if she would.
Okay, first of all, Barry, thank you so much. That was such an informative presentation, and you and Molly are great at role-playing together. It was very engaging, and
Thank
some
you.
stories I've actually never heard in therapy yet. Thank you, Molly. So if anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the Q&A section. But I'll start off, Barry. Actually, a question that I had thought of, which might actually require Molly for another role play, is
Okay.
Is the client who is, and I'm not sure what object she had there that she was handing to you, but they come in and they try to throw it at you as the therapist, and they want the session to be about you rather than it being about them. Not that you're taking it from them, but
Oh, they're giving it to me.
And maybe some interventions for that.
Okay, right. And let's say there are a couple different versions of this one. In this one, you come in and ask me about, how my family is doing with COVID.
Hi, how's your family doing with COVID? Are they safe?
I appreciate your asking. We're good. And tell me how to go for you. Now, in this very simple exchange, what I'm assessing is that this is a social encounter that still meets the boundaries of an appropriate therapeutic alliance, and that's predicated on my knowledge of the client. But there are clients who will persist with this. For example, clients who have attachment trauma sometimes have excessive worry about their therapist's health and well-being, essentially out of fear of being abandoned because the therapist dies, right? So now I have to jump to the meta level. I have to talk about what's happening. Try it again.
Hey, how's your family with COVID?
We're good. Can I ask, like, what's your concern? Are you worried about me?
Well, yeah, I don't want you to get sick and die. I'd be all alone.
Yes, you would be all alone. And now we have to talk about that one. So in this instance, I'm detecting that it's above and beyond a social encounter, and instead, this is really a transference issue, of the need/desire to possess the therapist. So I want to segue to the meta level. At this point, I'm saying, I know you have curiosity about me, and it's completely understandable, but we're really here to talk about you. So once again, I want to be graceful. I want to, and say what I think is comfortable within limits. And there's some people that I wouldn't say very much at all. Like, we're fine, thank you. And you're probably worried. Maybe you're worried about me. Maybe you're worried, something will happen. Is that what's going on with you?
Yeah, I guess so.
So I'm trying to find a graceful way of renegotiating what's transpiring, and it requires my understanding of what's the meaning of this encounter. That helpful?
Yes, very helpful. Thank you. Anybody else, would you like to ask a question?
Uh-oh.
The video froze for a second, but I don't think there was anything said, so I think we're okay.
Okay.
Any questions from anybody? So we do have a question from Paula. How to deal with silence from the client?
Okay, that's I love that. I love that question. How to deal with silence from the client, and let's even scope it out a little bit. What do you consider silence? So that's a rhetorical question. My own observation in doing therapy for a long time is that generally speaking, people do not tolerate more than 20 seconds of silence. What that means is after 20 seconds, it feels like an eternity and somebody should say something. Sometimes people need more than 20 seconds to assemble their thoughts. So I want to be cognizant of what is my own relative comfort/discomfort with silence. Silence can be a very, very useful therapeutic tool. I can use silence to help people draw them out. I can use silence as a way of saying, I'm here for you. I'm holding space for you. I can use silence. I can allow the silence as a way to say, there's no demand on you here. I'm here with you. You don't have to jump through hoops or say something, fancy for me. But it's also true that some people are holding out or that they're waiting for me to take over. I don't want to feed into that. If somebody is silent because they're waiting for me to adopt essentially the subject role and lead, I'd rather, again, go to the meta level. Molly, you've been quiet for, a minute and a half. And I would wait a minute and a half or 2 or 4. Can you help me understand what's happening?
I have a lot of thoughts.
Can you share some of what's going on?
I guess so.
She might say yes, no, maybe. But in this presentation, she says, I have a lot of thoughts. I'm inviting her to share. She's ready, she is not ready, but I'm content to wait her out. She doesn't have to do it on my schedule. I mean, we got to stop at the end of the hour. We get to the end of the hour and I say, it's been a long time and you haven't said much or at all, actually. And, how's it been for you? Are you willing to say how this has been for you?
It's scary to talk sometimes.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your hanging out. If you wish, we can schedule again. If you can say something next time, you can. If you can't, you can't. Now, what I'm presenting here is, again, a very zero demand, very low demand environment where I'm creating space. It's okay for her to be her. Who is this person who's silent for an entire hour? Is it she's playing a game with me? She's here because she doesn't want to be here. She's here because, she's satisfying a third party like a parole officer or spouse or something. Or is she basically so terrified that just sitting in the presence of another live person is already maximizing her ability, in which case I'm doing the Jane Goodall thing. I'm hanging out, I'm harmless, no demands, and I'm creating a comfortable space. And it could take a long time, depending on her characteristics, depending on what's driving this. You see, if it's severe attachment trauma, maybe that's it, the Jane Goodall thing. If on the other hand, I know she was referred, by a third party and she's just, biding her time, then I want to renegotiate what we're doing. Other thoughts or questions about that?
All right, I think we have time for one more question. Does anybody else have any questions? Going once, going twice. We do. Okay, Gary, the client who doesn't shut up.
Yeah. So again, I have to make some kind of decision about, first of all, where am I with that? Am I comfortable deciding that my role, I'm okay with the role of doing supportive therapy where basically I listen and provide empathy and I'm a good object, and that's as far as it's going to go. There are many people who will never get better. And that's just the fact of it. There are many people who are too depleted by the time they see us to make any realistic gains. Maybe this is the only place they have where somebody who doesn't interrupt them, listens to them, doesn't judge them. It's completely legitimate clinical decision to say, I'm good with that. It's also a legitimate decision to say, I don't think I'm helpful. And maybe we need to renegotiate what we do here. Either I refer you, refer you to, one of my colleagues that I detest, or we figure out a different way of working together. So I want to see if I can renegotiate. And it might sound like, like I mentioned before, you've talked a lot about these things. I'm curious, are you looking for feedback from me? Are you wanting things to be better? Do you want, because I have thoughts about what might be better, but maybe that's not what you're interested in.
Yeah, I just want to talk.
Fair enough. At least it's honest. So in this exchange, of course, we all get into the business because we want to, make a difference in people's lives. No question. She's not telling me what I want to hear, but you know what? She's telling me the truth. And I would much rather sit with somebody who's truthful and says, I'm just here to talk. You just sit there and shut up and listen. Okay. At least I know what we're doing, instead of she pretends that she's working on goals and we do the treatment plan thing and she subscribes to various goals, which, she's not doing. So I'm much more content with that honesty, authenticity, than I am pretending we're actually, working on some kind of problem solving that we're not. Other thoughts or comments?
We have one more question and then we'll wrap up. The client who criticizes the therapist during the session.
Beautiful. Yeah, let's do that one. So do you have thoughts about our session last time?
Yeah, I really wasn't comfortable with the way you were speaking to me. It was very aggressive and judgmental.
Well, look, what do you want to do? If you want to see another therapist, I can refer you out, or, maybe you'd be better served in the DBT program.
I'm out of here.
This is a classic fail. This is intriguing, and even though we're really exaggerating the dimensions of it, I think this is a very classic kind of encounter. We can understand this encounter from the standpoint of what's called the drama triangle that was described by Cartman. That's with a K. And the idea is that she is, from my perspective, perpetrating on me. She's persecuting me. And it's going to push me off my balance point from a good object, a compassionate, curious, non-judgmental person, to either I'm going to rescue and say, well, maybe we should meet more often, or, maybe, the fee is too high. Maybe you'd be satisfied if I waived your copay. So I'm now rescuing. Or I'll persecute in return. So it's throwing me off my balance, and I should know that the provocation is to push me into either persecuting her, as I just showed you, or rescuing. The challenge is to not make it about me. In either of those cases, I'm making it about me. So what's it like if I don't make it about me, if I keep it about her? Try again.
I really don't like the way you were speaking to me. It really hurt my feelings, very judgmental.
That's fortunate. Can you say more about that?
You know, you seem to make this face when you talk to me like you don't like me.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Tell me, what do you want me to do with that? What response are you looking for from me?
I just want you to be more positive towards me.
Okay, and maybe you could help me understand what positive is and looks like. Now, in this version, I'm staying in the object role. Well, it obviously requires enough ego strength for me that I don't get on the defensive. I remain curious. It's about her, it's not about me. So I want to elicit information. Now, my own experience with this is that generally speaking, I elicit, I ask, I want examples, I want to really get it from their point of view. And now I'm negotiating what's going to happen next. Now, remember, my impulse is to apologize too quickly because I want to rescue. And that's falling for the triangle, the drama triangle. Or persecute and defend myself. Why? Well, other people don't have a problem with me. That's all nonsense. Many times what I do is ask what she wants, and the clients often say, nothing, I just wanted to tell you. Oh, enough said. That's a very reparative experience. How many times do you get to say to somebody, I don't like your attitude and I don't like what happened, and you don't get an earful of defensiveness or hostility? I mean, it's so rare. So what she's experiencing is rupture and repair. And that's a beautiful thing to happen in therapy. And doesn't cost me anything to listen. So there are absolutely clients who are on the warpath and they're really trying to get a rise, and maybe it's not enough that they're heard. Maybe they really want to, persecute me and end. And again, what do you want me to do with these complaints? Now I'm renegotiating the contract. I hope that's helpful. I can't see anybody, so I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense or is
I'm
useful.
seeing a lot of thanks in the Q&A window, so I think that it's very helpful. Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, that's good. Oh, that Q&A thing.
So unfortunately, we're a little bit past time, so we're going to wrap things up. So this is where normally, if we were in person, for those of you who have been in Albany before, usually a nice round of applause.
Oh.
So I'll clap so Barry can hear it. So thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much, Barry and Molly, of course, for this wonderful keynote presentation. If anybody has any follow-up questions, I believe in your handout, Barry, there might be an email address
Yes.
that people can reach out to you.
That's right, yes.
So you'll have access to that as well. I hope everybody has a good evening and a good night of rest. And we will see hopefully everybody back here tomorrow morning for the next few days of presentations. And if anybody's interested in seeing Barry present again, he will be presenting on Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 12 noon on trauma and dissociation. So if you are interested in registering for that, feel free to go over to the website to register. Okay? So thank you, Barry, and everybody have a great night.
Thank you.